Welcome back, guys. I really appreciate you joining me today because we've got a significant update to unpack about the Internet Computer Protocol, often known as ICP. If you've been following this project or even just dipping your toes into crypto governance, you already know that ICP does things a bit differently. In this session, we're going to dive deep into a controversial governance decision that just played out. A proposal for a US-specific subnet was put forward but ended up getting a huge no vote from the community. This has raised all sorts of questions about how internet computer governance works, what went wrong this time, and what this means for developers, node operators, and token holders going forward. So, grab a coffee, settle in, and let's break it down step by step. Because while blockchain governance might sound dry, what's happening here could impact the entire direction of the network and how it expands worldwide. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Always do your own research and consult a professional before making any investment decisions. To start, let's talk about how governance on ICP actually functions. Unlike many blockchains where a handful of core developers or a central foundation holds most of the power, the Internet Computer's governance is designed to be as open and community-driven as possible. Anyone with ICP tokens can participate. You can go to the Network Nervous System (NNS) dashboard, browse the current proposals, read up on them, see who's backing them, and vote accordingly. Not only that, you can even create your own neuron, stake ICP, and delegate your voting power. For example, if you trust Dfinity, the main organization behind ICP, to make good decisions, you can configure your neuron to automatically vote however they do. It's an incredibly transparent system that lets you peek under the hood and see how whales, community developers, and individual stakers are influencing network upgrades and changes. This transparency is one of the big reasons the ICP ecosystem still attracts passionate developers and node operators. You can see every single proposal, who voted how, and what the justification was. No hidden deals behind closed doors. That's the ideal, at least. So let's zoom in on this specific topic, subnets. If you're newer to ICP, you might be wondering, what exactly is a subnet in this context? A subnet is basically a subset of nodes on the internet computer that work together to process and store data for specific applications. You can think of them as mini blockchains within the larger network. The network currently has multiple application subnets, each made up of a set number of nodes. These subnets handle workloads in a way that optimizes performance, security, and compliance. Previously, the community approved a proposal to expand the number of subnets significantly, going from 31 to 60 subnets, with each subnet typically made up of 13 nodes. This massive expansion was motivated by increasing demand, especially from big applications like Caffeine AI, which is an AI-powered self-writing app platform that runs on ICP. But here's the catch. With the internet computer aiming for global reach, jurisdictional requirements have become a bigger deal. For example, the EU has strict data residency and privacy laws, so the network introduced a Europe-only subnet to help applications stay compliant. Naturally, many in the community thought it made sense to create a similar US-only subnet, which would help American developers comply with local laws, ensure better latency, and generally strengthen the network's presence in the States. So the idea was logical. Spin up a new US-based subnet using data centers in places like New York and Jacksonville, Florida. The expectation was that this would get broad support, just like the EU subnet did. Surprisingly, this time around, when the proposal for the US-specific subnet actually hit the ballot, it didn't just squeak by or face a tight vote. It was crushed. Around 88% of the community voted no. For people who have been following ICP governance, this was a bit of a shocker. After all, the prior expansion plan passed comfortably with about 74% yes votes, and the appetite for scaling and geographic diversity was clear. So what changed? When you dig deeper, you see, it wasn't necessarily about the idea of a US subnet being bad or unnecessary. Instead, the rejection was rooted in the nitty-gritty technical and structural details of how the subnet was planned and how it fit into the larger network topology. The main technical snag came down to an inconsistency between the total number of nodes allowed in the proposed US subnet and the actual number of nodes available across the US-based data centers that were supposed to power it. Here's the issue in plain terms. The proposal defined the subnet to include up to 13 nodes, which aligns with how other application subnets are structured. But if you tally up the nodes in the Jacksonville and New York data centers combined, they have more than 13 nodes ready to go. That mismatch raised red flags for node operators and technical reviewers. From the perspective of compliance and consistency, it didn't make sense to deploy a US-only subnet, but then have leftover nodes sitting outside that subnet, or to split the data centers in a way that wasn't clearly defined. The community wants a clear, clean, and technically sound topology, not a patchwork that could create problems later. When DFinity's team reviewed this, they admitted that there were inconsistencies between the original proposal and the target topology. In a statement on the DFinity forum, one of the team members thanked the community for flagging these issues and confirmed they'd go back to the drawing board to fix it. Naturally, the rejection sparked a lot of discussion on the official DFinity forum. One user asked a fair question: why not treat the US subnet like the Swiss subnet, which was introduced as a rented subnet used exclusively by Swiss Subnet AG for its own projects? The idea was that this approach might sidestep some of the node allocation issues. But the DFinity team clarified that the US subnet was always intended to be a public subnet, just like the EU one, meaning it would be open to any developer with jurisdiction-specific needs. So the same exclusive use workaround wouldn't apply. These discussions highlight why Internet Computer's governance model, while sometimes messy, is so valuable. Anyone can weigh in, ask tough questions, and hold the core team accountable for ensuring every detail aligns with the network's technical and compliance standards. Interestingly, this wasn't the first time node operations in the US came up for a vote. Just before this subnet proposal, there were other proposals to transfer ownership of data centers in New York and Florida from a previous LLC to a company called Purify Technologies, a blockchain infrastructure provider for other chains like Ethereum and Solana too. These proposals were approved, and the changes were already implemented on-chain. So the ownership of the physical infrastructure is not the issue here. The community supports having US-based nodes in principle. The holdup is purely about how those nodes are structured and deployed within the ICP's global topology. While all this governance drama unfolded, another interesting development took place regarding ICP's token supply. Back in April, sharp-eyed community members noticed that the circulating supply of ICP jumped from about 480 million to 530 million tokens, seemingly overnight. Naturally, this triggered some anxiety about unexpected inflation. But when you dig into the details, it turns out this wasn't some secret minting event. Instead, the community passed a proposal that changed how circulating supply is defined. Before, only liquid tokens counted. Now, staked tokens, like those locked in neurons for governance, are included in the circulating figure. So the actual total supply didn't change significantly. It's just a more accurate reflection of the reality on-chain. From launch in 2021 to now, the total supply has grown by about 10%, which works out to a modest 2 to 3% annual inflation rate. That's pretty normal in crypto, and even lower than the inflation targets of some fiat currencies. And interestingly, this update didn't spook the market. In fact, that definition change coincided with a local price bottom for ICP, and the token price didn't dip below that level afterward. The fact that this US subnet proposal was rejected doesn't mean the community is against expanding in the US. It simply means the execution needs to be rethought. The DFinity team has already hinted they'll draft a revised proposal that addresses the node count and topology mismatch. We'll likely see more detailed plans to either adjust the limits, introduce multiple US subnets, or find another structure that keeps everything compliant and technically sound. If you're an ICP holder, developer, or node operator, this is why it's worth checking the governance dashboard regularly. Proposals come up almost daily, and each one could affect how the network evolves. Whether it's adding new regions, onboarding new data centers, or tweaking the economic model, every vote counts. To wrap it up, Today's topic is a great example of why the Internet Computer Protocol stands out. It's not just about flashy tech or the promise of decentralized web apps, it's also about having a governance system that gives everyone a seat at the table. Yes, sometimes that means good ideas get shot down if the details don't line up perfectly. But in the long run, that level of scrutiny keeps the network stable, resilient, and better positioned for real-world growth. So, if you've ever wanted to see blockchain governance in action, with all its debates, discussions, and do-overs, ICP is definitely worth watching. And if you're holding ICP tokens, don't forget, your votes shape the protocol's future. So, what do you think about ICP's current position? Are you bullish on its growth in AI and DeFi? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found value in this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more breakdowns like this. Thanks for watching, stay curious, stay cautious, and I'll catch you in the next one.